our next story comes from Paul Doran. So please give Paul Doran some great jazz hands to welcome him. And you're very welcome to put all kinds of comments down there in the chat. And while somebody's reading their story, you can write down the favorite lines from the story there too, to keep the chat going while they're doing that. So Paul, you're very welcome to 10 by 9, and let's have your story of courage.
Okay, so I was lying on the hospital trolley and thinking, will I ever come back to Tasmania? And I thought, well, 2 visits and have ended disastrously. I think the 3rd would probably end in death, so we'll maybe give it a miss. So the first visit was in 2019, and Padraig said we were planning to go to Australia, and he said, oh, do you fancy going to Tasmania? And I said, yeah, of course. Heard a lot about it, and would love to go, and we could stay somewhere nice, a couple of nights, and then head back to Melbourne. So that was the plan. And so Padraig said to me, right, okay, well, we're going to be staying in, we're going to be staying in somebody else's house, and the alarm bells immediately were ringing because Padraig does a lot of church work, and, you know, these people are set in their ways very often. So he reassured me, it's okay. We have our own part of the house with our own bathroom, so we'll be it'll be as if we're on our own. And they live in the center of Hobart. So that was great. So Padraig was coming from Sydney. I was coming from Melbourne. So we agreed to meet at the airport, and the guy that we would be staying with, he was going to pick us up. So I get a text from Padraig just as I land saying, oh, we are now, we're up getting a coffee, so I'll get you one, come and meet us. So in the airport, I go up and I walk up to Padraig, and I could see he had a strange look on his face. And he introduced me to the man who was lurking behind him, and that's who we were going to be staying with. I thought, okay, fine. So he seemed very nice, quiet, reserved. And so we were driving back to Hobart, and we drove into Hobart. And then suddenly we were driving out of Hobart, the other side. And not only that, but we were going up a mountain. And then Padraig turned to me, and I could see by the look on his face that he was trying to prepare me for something. He said, oh, Eric and his wife live halfway up a mountain. I said, oh, right, that sounds nice. Not quite the center of Hobart, but there you go. So we keep going, and we're about 6 miles out of Hobart, literally halfway up Mount Victoria. And we get out of the car and go in, and Eric and his wife were very nice, slightly odd, probably not used to visitors or strangers in the house, and they show us to our room. Now, I wouldn't say there was nothing wrong with the room, but it was definitely not our own part of the house. The bathroom that we would be using was directly outside their bedroom door, and they never seemed to close their bedroom door. So it wasn't quite how it was sold to me. And the weather was horrific. It was like October in Ireland, and I remember sitting in the bedroom on the bed, looking out the window, thinking, I had to stay here for 3 nights while Padraig is working. I have no access to transport. I am stuck up a mountain. So anyway, we went and had dinner with the people. They made dinner, and that was very sweet. And it was about 9:30, and oh yeah, sorry, they served wine with the dinner, and it was literally like 2 little sips of wine, and you know, that wasn't enough for me to get over my social anxiety. So come 9:30, I suddenly developed severe jet lag and decided I needed to go to my bed. So I yawned, and went down to my bed and sat there and left Padraig to his own devices, because I thought, well, he can stew in his own juices for this one. So he came down to the room after a little while, and he says, we have to leave. I said, oh, yes, I'm glad. So he got on the internet. Unfortunately, the internet didn't quite reach where our bedroom was, so he had to go up to the main part of the house. And he started looking for accommodation in Hobart. So he checked every hotel. Unfortunately, it was the weekend of the annual regatta, So there wasn't a room to be found. I think he found one room, and it was like $800 for a night. And even Padraig, generous and all as he is, wasn't going to stretch to that. So he came back down to me and said, I can't find anywhere to stay. And I said, okay, but you know, there's not a lot we can do. He'd emailed everybody he knows. And so he turned around and said, we're going to go home. We're going back to Melbourne. I said, oh, thank God for that. So he booked a couple of flights, and we decided, yeah, he would be finishing work at a reasonable hour the next day, and we would get a flight back to Melbourne. In the meantime, I would go into Hobart with him, and I'd go to Mona, which is a big modern art museum. So I get to see what I wanted to see, and we don't have to spend 2 more nights in our halfway up a mountain. So that was our first. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you. Padraig came back up to the room, and he said, if you're going to use the bathroom during the night, put on a pair of slippers. I was like, oh God, why? He said, well, apparently the house is built on a scorpion's nest. So, and he didn't know, he had asked the owner, scorpions like bee sting or death, what kind of level? And he said, somewhere in between. So I thought, right, this just doesn't get any worse. It was like being in one of your own nightmares, actually living through it. So we got back to Melbourne, and I thought, right, that's it, done with seeing Hobart, been to Tasmania, that's it. 2020, Padraig and I are going back to Australia. Padraig says, you fancy a trip to Hobart? I said, I'm not sure. And he said, I promise I'll get a hotel for 2 nights. We'll just have a lovely time and it'll be great. And so, okay, he was going to work again the next day. So I've just tootled about on my own. So I was happy with that. So we go to the airport in Melbourne to fly to Hobart, and it's a Friday night. And in the old days, the airport was packed, buzzing, people drinking and having a good old time, all heading home to wherever they were heading. And flight delayed 40 minutes. Grand, no problem. Flight delayed another 40 minutes. Flight delayed another hour, blah, blah, blah. Eventually it takes off, I think, about 11:30 that night. So we get to our hotel in Hobart. So, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. So that's, Hobart's closed. So that's the first night of the holiday gone. So second day, we go out, lovely day, have a wander around in Hobart. It's a lovely place, lots of lovely little shops and stuff, and lots of history. And Padraig goes off, does his work, and then we, in the evening, prepare to head out to get something to eat. And so we are walking down by the harbour, and I turned around, I saw a van, I was just reading the side of the van, and then bang, walked into a post, and my head just erupted, and there was blood all over the place. And Padraig said, need to take you to a hospital. I said, it's fine. I very much believe you don't go to the hospital unless your head is actually falling off. So he said, no, really should go to the hospital. I said, I'm not going to the hospital. And so we went to the spa, and we got Dettol, and we got cotton wool and plasters and stuff, and did all that. And he was very attentive, and he, you know, cleaned it up and put a bandage on it. And then we said, right, we're going to get something to eat. And we went into the bar, and the guy said, guy points to me and he goes, is that a fresh cut? I said, yeah, very fresh. He says, ooh, love that smell of Dettol. Just thought, oh, great. So we had a couple of drinks and bite to eat, and then I went into the bathroom to have a look, and I thought, yeah, I really, really do need to go to the hospital, probably need some stitches. And Padraig had taken a photograph and sent it to our friend Margaret, who used to be a nurse, and she's very much of the same idea as me, that you only go to the hospital if you really, really need it. But she said you go to the hospital. So yeah, thought. And Padraig Googled, and the hospital was a 1/4 mile walk. So we walked up to the hospital, went in, and said, what happened? I said, recent injury. And they said, okay, we'll come to you in a minute. And then they ask you that question that everybody hates. It's like, have you had any alcohol? I was like, not when I did this, but I've had 2 drinks since. And they said, well, look, you need to go sit over there. And we were the only ones in. And then we noticed the sign, and the sign said, Hobart Private Hospital. And because we had now signed in, that was going to cost us $180. So before they'd done anything to us, that was $180. The general hospital was next door, where we could have got treated for free, or I could have got treated for free. So we thought, sod it, we're here, it's private. We'll probably get done in half an hour, and that's it. We'll just enjoy the rest of the evening. 3 hours later, I'm lying in the treatment room waiting for my stitches. Then the nurse, or the doctor, comes in and she says, "Oh, what happened to you?" I said, "I walked into a sign, blah, blah, blah." And she said, "Right, well, we'll get you all stitched up." And when I came back out, I was waiting for the bill, and I thought, this is going to be horrific. $300. So it wasn't so bad. But she said to me, and she said, "Oh, that's going to leave a scar." I said, "Well, scars are okay." And it said, "Oh, scars are sexy on men." For $300, I bloody well hope so. And here is the actual scar. And will I ever have the nerve to go back to Hobart? I don't know. I don't think so. That's me.
Someday I'm going to tell this my story of courage about accompanying Paul through that whole ordeal, and me saying, "You really do need to get that looked at. You really do need to get that looked at," when there was blood dripping through a plaster, and Paul going, "No, no, it's totally fine." And like he says, even the barman going, "Yeah, what's happened to your head?" Anyway, so congratulations, Paul, on your story of courage.